Hello everyone, Dimitri Mello here, the Soccer Excellence Mentor, and today we're going to be talking about exercises with no opposition. First, welcome to my channel. If you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe, hit thumbs up if you like my content. If you're not familiar with the way I set up my videos, I always use my own posts to guide the discussion, so I'm gonna put the post right here and the link to my social medias right here so you can access all my content, okay? So today we're going to be talking about exercises without a position and my take on this, because I've seen many coaches use exercises such as passing routines, passing movements, passing the ball and move without oppositions, and honestly, I see no sense in this. To me, it's a total waste of time, and I'm going to explain to you why. So first, I'm going to read my post so I can generate the discussion from that. I've seen many coaches doing exercises without opponents, passing combinations, moving and passing against no opponents, as if this would be transferred to the game in a coordinated way. I'm not referring to a little moments where you use 1 minute to coordinate your team without the ball. I'm talking about spending 5 or more minutes doing an exercise without any opponents. Think it that way. If the game is about one team reacting to the other and generating different situations to be solved, how do you expect to transfer knowledge from an exercise that has no opposition? You're taking away the one element that is the main problem of the game. The only thing between your team and the goal is the opposition. If your exercises do not involve opponents, the main problem in the game is suddenly gone. Therefore, what was learned in that environment cannot be transferred to the real final task of the game. Imagine that scenario. You want to improve dribbling in your team. If you use dribbling drills without opponents, your players will improve their dribbling technique in those aspects, but they will not improve the capacity of using what they are practicing to beat an opponent, to recognize when there's no space to attack, how to attack the space, or what to do after they've attacked the space. Another situation is if you introduce dribbling as a goal in a global or a systemic exercise, now you can correct if this player is executing the right technique in the right situation, if he recognized the opportunity, and what was his decision after executing the task. That way, you can extract much more information about your players' real struggles and help them by intervening in the real game situations that will lead them to understand the game as a whole. In conclusion, if you're not looking to improve your players' technique to a minimum level that makes them capable of doing a rondo, beginners, or to a level of perfection that makes the difference in high performance, such as a perfect header, for example, in high performance, then executing exercises without opponents is not the way to go to help your team solve the problems in the game, because the game only exists when there's opposition. So guys, you can see my opinion there. So from here, I'm gonna develop the thought, because again, I've seen many coaches and good coaches doing things that make sense in the rest of the session, but they are still using exercises without opposition in their sessions, and I really can't understand why. Some of them argue that the physical loads of the previous game was too much, so they just want to move a little and pass a little. I don't agree with that. You can usually use a 5v3 rondo as a low intensity rondo that will generate a lot more knowledge and applicable, transferable concept and knowledge to the game, to your team, so they use their time much better. And also, I don't think there's any reason for you to gather together your team to train. You have their 18 players, let's say, in your session with you in the field, and you're making them train without opposition. They can do that in their homes. They can do that themselves. So if you want to train anything like that, don't use the time you have with them, because the time you have with them is supposed to help them improve towards the final goal of the game, which is to put the ball inside the goal. And to do that, you gotta take the opponents out of your way. You won't do that by moving the ball and moving the players without opposition. There's nothing transferable to the game there. Okay? So another thing, when you use exercises without a position, let's say you have 4 players and they're passing to each other and moving, passing and moving, no opposition, okay? You might say, oh no, but I'm training control and pass, and no, you're not, because there's no control and pass if there's no opposition. There's no correct control if it's not in relation to the opposition, because you have to know where you want to control to, where do you want to go, what's your goal towards the opponent, so you can judge if that's a correct or an incorrect control. Okay. Another thing is that when there's no opposition, now your players are not thinking of solving the actual problem that exists in the game, which is the opposition. So if your players are executing technical and tactical tasks without opposition, it means they're not using their brains to solve the most urgent and most significant problem in the game, which is to beat the opposition. So you're training your players to not think of the opposition and think only of their technique that they are executing in that exercises. What does that mean? It means that now all that they are doing is repeating a technique or a movement because you told them to do so, and not thinking, not evaluating, not judging if this is the correct way to solve the situation, because there's no situation to be solved. So you're just making your players repeat something without thinking, and you're thinking that this will be transferable to the game. The game is not about that. To me, every time a coach applies exercises to their players without a position, this coach is being lazy. We as coaches, we are always asking our players, right, to be creative, to solve situations different ways, etc., etc., etc. And then when we are the ones who have the responsibility to propose the session, the exercises, we're not creative. We're making them do things that are not transferable to the game. What is your philosophy then? How would you have the moral to ask from your players to be creative and solve problems when you are not being creative and solving problems? You're just telling them that you weren't capable of designing an exercise with a low intensity because your players were physically tired, or whatever is your excuse to use an exercise without opponents. You weren't creative enough to create an exercise similar in whatever things you are judging necessary to do without opponents, to do it with opponents. You're not being creative. So guys, this is my opinion on using exercises without a position. To me, it makes no sense. It's a total waste of time if you're not seeking to improve a beginner or to improve to perfection a high performance player. As always, if you like my content, thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. Make sure you follow me on the other social medias, Facebook, Instagram. I'm always posting content, valuable and applicable contents that you as a coach can use in your sessions with your players. If you think this video is valuable for someone else, make sure you share it with other coaches so they can all drive their performance towards excellence as we are trying to do here. Make sure you check my course, Soccer Coaching Express. It's 14 episodes. I'm going to leave the link to the playlist down below in the comment section. So make sure you check that out, and let's all drive our performance towards excellence.